What's going on, everybody? Different kind of Nick's take, because I'm outside enjoying a cigar. I actually thought about doing a podcast from out here, but I don't want to get my mic and everything stinky, so because it ruins the value of it and it can cause problems down the road. Few things that I really want to go over. And again, it's just off the cuff. The amount of people that I see celebrating the cancer diagnosis of Joe Biden is insane to me. First, as an anarchist, I try my best to call it out on both sides. I am an anarchist with some conflictions, because where I break from anarchy is only in pretty much one thing, which is my Catholic background, my Christian faith. So that's really the only part that me and anarchy conflict, and that's changing. Like, my view on religion and everything is changing. But there's always been like this sort of unknown rule, I guess, or I guess it used to be a known rule, that you don't really celebrate death. I know, biblically speaking, we're supposed to, but because we'll see them again, kind of a thing, right? That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But when somebody announces that they're potentially staring down death's door, that's not something to celebrate. However, I also understand why a lot of people on the right are doing that. I'm not saying it's right, but I understand where they're coming from. And where they're coming from, and I kind of flew off the handle on X about this, I would rather show decency and grace, because again, my Christian background, I think that's what would be called for here. There's a saying in a lot of Christian circles: hate the sin, not the sinner. I'll go into that further in a minute. So, I believe when somebody is facing death, politics shouldn't be involved. There should be a grace given to that person, a praying, if you will, for grace, for them to seek refuge in Christ. Again, I know as an anarchist, when I say these things out loud, it kind of makes my skin crawl sometimes. I know, contradictions, okay? But I can see both sides to this. Like, again, I understand why a lot of people on the left are using it as and I would argue rightfully so, they're using it as a way to cry out for a person that they may have voted for, that they supported, whatever the case may be, right? I understand why they're all upset. And it's horrible news when anybody gets cancer. Every one of us knows somebody that's either gone through cancer, died from cancer. It's actually one of the only other things that we all have in common is we know people that have been affected or impacted by cancer. So I understand where they're coming from. Now, on the other side, I understand where they're coming from as well, because there's a lot of people that have animosity and just anger in them from how everything during COVID was handled, how a lot of people on the left were wishing death on those on the right, or those that were in the middle or wherever they may have been, that didn't really want to rush out to get the vaccine. I understand how both sides, I understand where they're coming from in that regard. I also understand, to a degree, how a lot of the January 6th people were arrested without due process. You know, that's something that you hear a lot of recently in recent news. That one gray hair is just going nuts today. So, let's see if we can get it under control. I think I had it and then I messed it up. There we go, that'll work. Sorry, but a lot of J6ers were arrested without due process. That happened under the Biden administration. That's where a lot of the anger is coming from a lot of these people. Some of these people were actually potentially arrested in the January 6th thing. And a few of them that I was seeing their outrage, they never actually entered the Capitol. So why were they swept up? So I can certainly understand and see both sides to it. However, as much of a petty person as I am, even I try to put stuff like that aside when something like this happens. But then it leads me to another part that typically is coming from people on the right. The timing of this. And you've got all these doctors and people coming out now that are like, oh, a diagnosis actually can be missed and blah, 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 right? Well, remember, the president gets a yearly screening. They put them through what I'm only assuming is a barrage of tests to see if they are still fit to hold office. I don't know if it's a requirement. I believe it might be, but it's something that they started doing, especially in the Biden administration, to prove he was cognitive and able to conduct the office of presidency, right? So there's a lot of people that started asking questions, and now those people are getting attacked. I have a problem when people start asking questions and they get attacked for asking questions. You're supposed to be able to question everything and anything, including certain countries. We'll just leave it at that. But they're questioning, okay, well, if he got those results, or if he got those tests for the 4 years of his presidency, how did they miss it? And I'm finding a lot of medical people that are having a hard time really explaining that, because it seems like their only answer is it's an aggressive form of prostate cancer. Prostate cancer is one of the easiest ones to find, regardless of its, and again, I'm not a doctor, regardless of its stage. Like, it's, our blood work elevates. I know a guy that had gone through prostate cancer, and he was a bit of a nerd. So he watched his blood levels to ensure that he never went through it again, or if his levels were creeping up, that he took preemptive measures, right? So I find it hard knowing the people that I've known that's gone through it, that like even the most microscopic raise in blood sometimes can say that. Again, not a doctor, I'm just going on what a friend has told me. So I'm finding it hard, and again, kind of agreeing with the people on the right, which, trust me, I don't like saying that a lot, are bringing up, like, how was this missed? And then you have people that are peddling the whole super cancer thing that they want to tie into, you know, the Fauci ouchies and stuff like that. So, but a lot of medical people, a lot of doctors that I'm finding that are explaining it, that, oh, these tumors can be missed. A stage 4 tumor can be missed? It's like And I know science changes, but it's like they're redefining everything that has been known and accepted in the cancer community and the scientific community in these last, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years. They started changing a lot of definitions to mean something else. And I'm not here to bash anything, but I'm just saying, cancer used to be something when I was growing up that was in your DNA, or that you got from like a poison. And now they claim, and this may be ignorant of me, I'm sure it is, but now they claim that there are some cancers that are STDs, and it's like, how? You know what I mean? So anyway, I see where they're coming from. Like, the main question is, okay, if he had these tests done yearly, which we're assuming he did, how was it missed? That's one part that they are bringing up. And oddly, I might say, I find it strange that people on the left aren't asking the same questions. They kind of have like this hive mentality about them now, which is not what they used to be. It's actually pretty frightening and scary and sad. But anyway, beside the point. Why aren't they asking the questions? Because immediately when somebody on the right does it, it's, oh, you heartless bastard. You invoke a emotional response instead of saying, why was this missed? Like, I thought we were all in agreement that we're here to understand things. Like, the basis of living is understanding as much as you possibly can about the world. So, how did it get missed? I've never been the type to blindly accept somebody's findings or opinions. I always look. Case in point, if I ever got diagnosed with cancer, I'm not taking the first doctor's word. I'm probably going to 3, 4, maybe even 5 other doctors. And if they all come up with the same diagnosis, okay. That's an informed decision, in my opinion. And for nobody to question that, like, again, how did it get missed? How was this possible? All of these things. Men are told that early screening and screening often and watching their numbers and all this other stuff will help catch prostate cancer early. It's kind of the same thing with breast cancer. If you catch it early, you have a higher chance of survival. And now all of a sudden, it's a terminal cancer out of nowhere. And I understand there are cases when it can happen, but those cases are very rare. And certainly, I wouldn't think they would be as common for somebody that potentially may have gone through yearly tests to prove that they were healthy and fit to continue working in the office of presidency. That's what I kind of have an issue with. The next thing is the timing behind all of it. If you didn't know, there was a thing that was released called the Biden-Her tapes. It was kind of everywhere, and then it went away. And the reason it went away was because the cancer diagnosis came out. Again, just questioning. I'm not celebrating the fact. I do find that a little bit suspicious. Other than that, I want to know why it wasn't seen sooner. Because from everything that I have been able to read, everything that I've seen from like doctors and people posting on X and Facebook, there are signs of prostate issues, especially in the older people. This is a man that's late 70s, 80s, I'm not really sure how old he is now. I think he's in his 80s. He should have known, hey, something's up. If he didn't have the mental cognitive ability to know whoever's taking care of him should have known. And this is the problem that I have. I believe whoever is in charge of helping Biden, and I believe whoever drug him out of a well-deserved retirement should be brought up on the strictest of charges. I really do. Because what we saw objectively, if you look at it objectively, what you saw in his 4 years of presidency was a man that was struggling, and you cannot deny that. In fact, now they're attacking Jake Tapper, who's coming out with a book that's claiming all of these things about how Biden just wasn't there. That brings up other questions. And again, I don't like aligning with the right, but when you got a lot of people saying, well, who's running the country? I think that's a valid question. If you've got people from Biden's so-called inner circle that are saying he didn't know when his son died, he didn't know when Trump was elected, and that's what was in the Herd tape, who was in charge? Again, I try to be as objective as I possibly can. And I realize asking some of these questions will make people insinuate that I lean more right. Technically, the only thing I lean right on is religious aspects. We already covered that. But I think you have the right to ask the question. If these people that supposedly knew him, this dude that was interviewing him, are saying he wasn't entirely mentally capable of doing things, I think the right and appropriate question is, then who was? And they've already put out things claiming that a lot of the signatures from Biden were what are known as the auto pen. Who was the one applying the auto pen? I mean, if we can't question that, what good is it claiming we're in a democracy? Or more accurately, a constitutional republic. But anyway. So, I really hate what happened to Biden's legacy. The man served, regardless of your political views. It should still be looked at as an honor to have served your nation. And he had he was the vice president of the United States. I mean, well-deserved retirement. And they plucked him from retirement. And whoever they got from the retirement that he was enjoying was clearly and evidently, it was pretty quickly known that that wasn't the Biden we saw from Scranton, Pennsylvania. It just wasn't. It wasn't the same guy. I mean, you could see that guy was in there somewhere, but just in the 4 years of him not being in the public light, so to speak, to when he started campaigning, it wasn't even the same energy. I don't know. Like when he snapped on the auto worker, when the auto worker or the union worker, I don't remember if it was auto or not, when he said, "You work for me. I don't work for you." That's not a seasoned politician. A seasoned politician would have laughed that off, especially somebody like Joe Biden, who laughed off a lot of criticism and handled it very well. Again, his legacy completely ruined by whoever plucked him from his retirement and forced him to run for the office of presidency. In my opinion. And I think that person should be held accountable. So, that's one big story, and one that now people are doing their yards. One that I would hope asking a question wouldn't be viewed as being heartless or inconsiderate or anything like that. Because again, I'm going to question everything. I grew up watching X-Files. So, plus I'm an anarchist. It's my nature. The next big thing out there would be the whole Epstein thing. Now, this is something that people on the right have been screaming for years, is that Epstein didn't kill himself. One of those people was a man by the name of Dan Bonagino. I think that's how you say his name. He's a political podcaster. He used to be a Secret Service member, and now I believe he's the deputy director of the FBI. Him and the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, came out and said Epstein 100% killed himself. I took a lot of psychology classes back in the day, and one of the things that they told us when I was going through when I was attempting a career in a different field, one of the things they told us is when somebody typically uses the phrase 100%, 110%, whatever, they're typically hiding some truth or hiding some lies behind that. And especially when they go over 100%. Nobody has to say 100% this happened. If they say it happened, most people are willing to accept that as being 100%. You know what I mean? So when somebody says 100% this is what happened, they're wanting to give you extra truth, and in reality, it may not be. You know what I mean? So, Bill Clinton, I 110% did not sleep with that woman. Now we all know, he never said that, I'm just using that as an example, that he said I did not have sexual relations with that woman. But if he had come out and said, I 110% did not do this, automatically he did it. That's the rule of thumb from what I learned in a lot of psychology classes. So, when somebody adds the number, like Kash Patel, who used to be somebody that was like Epstein didn't kill himself, is now definitively saying it, now the people on the right that were hoping and praying that we would get answers with Epstein are going, they got to him. Nobody in our country should fear the truth. And when you have people fearing the truth, are you free? This goes back to, why can't we question? I mean, I'll leave it for you to distinguish and go through. I don't think we're ever going to learn anything about Epstein. I don't think it's because of political people, because, let me just put this out there, as much of hatred for Donald Trump, as soon as Biden got into office, the Democrats would have wanted to seize power for decades by proving Trump was on that list. If he's on the list. And he might very well be. But them not putting it out and not outing him for being on there, I just find hard to believe. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because I'm a skeptic by nature, I don't know. I believe the reason we'll never learn about Epstein is because obviously I believe the government was involved. There are numerous rumors that he may have been some kind of a CIA type asset. The fact that he kind of came out of nowhere and became a billionaire leads to a lot of questions that people don't like you asking. I think that the fact that the bills of that island and everything to do with that island were still paid, and that somebody has now kind of quietly taken it over, and they didn't really destroy it like they did his mansion in Florida, I think is kind of odd. And again, these are just questions. But apparently when you start asking questions, people don't like that. And I don't know why. I believe not only was our government involved, I think a lot of governments of the world were involved, especially one that when you mention them, all of a sudden they come out and tell you that you're anti those people. The people know, the government most certainly. But that's for another day, I guess. So, I think every major power that you can think of, I hate when it burns uneven. I know I shouldn't do that, but I do. I think every major power you can think of was involved. And I also think a lot of corporations were involved. Which would do harm to the global economy, which is why we'll never learn. I mean, think of, and you've heard of BlackRock and Vanguard? Just assume that maybe they were there. Do you think the people that are in charge of those two companies would ever let that information come out? I don't. And I'm not accusing, I'm just speculating and just saying. For instance, as to why we will never learn about it. So, I just find it odd that somebody supposedly killed themselves, and when they did, it just so happened that all of this course of events of somebody that was under a 24/7 surveillance, all of these random events happened perfectly for that person to commit suicide. Now, could they have orchestrated it and actually committed suicide? Absolutely. Could they have paid the guards to disable the camera, or paid somebody to disable the camera, made the guards fall asleep? Absolutely. And then still commit suicide? Yes. But the thing that I have a problem with is suicide, and this is just me. His height versus the bed. I know people can. I just find it hard to believe that it would have been excruciating, to not get into too much of it, but to sit there and just basically lean into something until you can't breathe anymore. Maybe it's because it's my fear, my phobia. Like, I can't understand that mindset, but I guess he feared what might happen to him. Maybe rightfully so. But there is this country that's known for doing kind of covert operations like that. Not saying they did, I'm just saying that would be right up their alley. They have a whole special force that pretty much does things like that. So, I hate what's going on with Biden. I really do. I hate that his legacy was ruined. I hate how people on the right are reacting, although I can agree, I can understand where they're coming from. I'm not saying it's right, but I can certainly question the timing of it and what it accomplished. And again, there's a lot of people that are doing it in anger, and that's never a good place to react. Just trust me, it's never a good place to react from, a place of anger. The last thing I'm going to talk about today is Comey, James Comey. Now, this is another story that's going to make it seem like I'm a right-leaning person, and I do not consider myself that. Again, involve myself too much in the party system. But Comey put up a picture, I believe it was on Instagram, of some shells that he thought were a pretty combination, and it spelled out 8647. And a lot of people took that as him threatening the president. You know, Secret Service investigated. Excuse me, I did not mean to slurp. Secret Service investigated it, and of course nothing's going to come from it because he's one of the political top people. But him coming out and saying he didn't know that 86 meant kill, I think is just 100%, I think it's just bullshit. Who doesn't know that 86 means to stop, to end, to take out? If you've watched any old school movie, you know that. How could he not know that? And to put 47 beside it leads people to believe that he is sending a covert message of somebody that has potentially faced multiple assassination attempts. This guy was the head of the FBI at one point. You expect me to believe that the head of the FBI has no idea what 86 means? Right. It's getting loud, so I'm going to end it. Hug your loved ones each and every day, because you never know when the good Lord will call them home. For every dark night, there's always a brighter day. Life's just a party, and parties weren't meant to last. I'll talk to y'all soon. Y'all be good.